Welcome to another time-lapse art video. I believe this is close to the last page I have to color on the first chapter, so making good progress. Just wanted to talk a little bit about high liturgy, low liturgy churches, sort of my views on that. I just want to talk briefly about my church background. My church is non-denominational, which means, we don't really have any particular practices or anything like that. It's pretty loosey-goosey for the most part when it comes to sort of what we do, right? Our traditions and so on. So, recently we actually got a chapel. I say recently, but it was a few years back. We got this chapel, and I was really excited because I was like, oh, wow, we kind of hold our services in like a gymnasium. And so when we got a chapel, I was like really excited to hold services there because it looked beautiful, The only problem is apparently it's too small to hold all of the congregation. And so it's just kind of there for like weddings or funerals or special occasions. And it's a real bummer because going in there, it's really gorgeous and beautiful. Architecture really has a way of bringing out a reverence for God, in my view. Anyway, so that's my background, and with that background, it maybe have been a year. It's a little less than a year back now. I went to Oxford for an apologetics conference, and it was a really cool conference. Learned a lot of things. One of the things that we did over there is we went to a cathedral, and it was either an Anglican or an Episcopalian cathedral. I'm not exactly sure which it was, but it was certainly a higher liturgy sort of service, higher than what I was sort of expecting, right? It showed me a few things about it. They do these chants, and it sounds like the Latin chants that are done, I think, in like Catholic circles. I think most Catholic circles actually do chanting in Latin, but this show just shows you how much I know about the liturgy and other denominations. So when I was there, it taught me an interesting thing about it, and it really got me to look at certain things a certain way. One thing I would say that sometimes I think in Protestant circles, we can sort of have a pride about, hey, we don't do tradition. Tradition is for those weird people over there, right? Meanwhile, some of these traditions are really beautiful and they really compel the heart. I think we should be compelled in all parts of our bodies to worship God, not just our minds. We should be compelled by our hearts as well. And I think high liturgy does that. At least it did it for me in that service, right? And another benefit I realized was like, hey, this is tradition that's been passed down for a long time, which actually gives sort of a very strong feeling of identity. If you're constantly shifting what you're doing in terms of your tradition, there isn't so much of a reverence for the tradition. And reverence is a good thing to feel as if you identify with the things that your church does, right? And so it really got me to look at the different side of it and see how high tradition can really compel somebody's heart to worship God even on a deeper level. However, it did get me to see some risks, right? And one of the risks would be, so for example, if you had grown up in that tradition, because I was like, hey, this is me, I'm a Protestant, I haven't grown up in this tradition. I wonder how someone who always goes to this church feels. And I imagined, hey, you know what? Sometimes you grow up with something and in your mind it's stuffy and traditional and it's restricting, right? Instead of beautifying, right? And so I felt that, probably that's felt by a lot of people who go to that church, right? So that's a risk that you can get bogged down in that, and it becomes more about the tradition. The same thing on the other end, if you actually identify with that liturgy, you could identify with that liturgy and it becomes more about the liturgy, right? It becomes a source of pride the same way that you would have pride as a Protestant by not having that tradition, right? So both traditions can be stumbling blocks. So the question is, well, which is better? I don't think one is better than the other. As a matter of fact, being there, I was really happy to see my brothers in a different place worshiping differently, and it was interesting what they did, and I felt very enriched by it. And I think that ought to be all our attitudes about at least liturgy. I mean, if you're looking at theology, that's a little bit different, but in terms of just the way that the service goes, I don't think there's one wrong or right way to do it, but I think everybody can learn from each other. And just because it's high tradition doesn't mean it's bad. And just because it's low tradition, it doesn't mean it's bad, right? Both of these things focus on different aspects of the service. And to me, I think that's great. I don't have a problem with either one. Maybe I'm just ignorant, and I certainly am ignorant of a great deal of different denominations. I'd like to learn more. If you know more about this, let me know in the comments. I appreciate you guys watching and listening. So catch you on the next one. Bye.